I want to share something with you that maybe you've never heard before. Maybe you've never thought of it this way before. But today, my guest Patrick is really going to help us reimagine what comparison could actually be for us. He's also going to help us reimagine perfectionism and busyness. So many of us has attached our value with how much we can do, how busy we could be, how many checks can we mark off of the to-do list. In today's episode, I want you to first pause, unless you're driving, sit, listen, and really allow this to fill your soul. It's only about 19 minutes of good content of how busyness, perfectionism, and overdoing is really causing us to lack the emotional attachment, attention, and what our brain really needs as far as the attention and leaning into our emotions. Grab your pens, grab your notebooks, because we're about to get to the coaching. Welcome to Healing and Becoming.
Healing and becoming. That's right. Healing and becoming.
Hey, 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 happy healing and becoming. Thank you all so much for joining me for yet another episode of Healing and Becoming, where you guys already know what it is. We believe in lifting as we climb, turning our trials into treasures, living a life to inspire and not impress, opening up and allowing God to fully restore us, and loving as if we've never been hurt. I have a bone to pick with you guys today, and I think today's guest is really going to help me set some things straight. Many people that I work with, many people just all around the world, they have traded really expressing themselves emotionally, being vulnerable, being emotionally available for busyness and perfectionism. How do I know? Because I could be the first to raise my hand to say that is something that I also did. I wanted to avoid being hurt, so I became busy. I wanted to avoid being wrong, so I became a perfectionism. But with the help of people like my amazing guests and this conversation that we're going to have today, I believe if that's something that you're struggling with, if that's something that you've been dealing with, today is the episode for you to lean in. So grab your pens, grab your journals, and let's get to the coaching. Without any further ado, hey, Patrick, you got a minute?
Yeah, good day, Tamika. Thanks for having me. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you as well. Good day. I love that. Tell the TWT audience where you're from and a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you. So I'm from Sydney, Australia, and I'm a psychologist and a spiritual teacher. And I try to combine psychology and spirituality together to help people live their truth. And
Mm.
that means like live from our point of our soul. So we can find our deepest place within and bring that into the world.
Beautiful, beautiful. You know, Patrick, I have recently really leaned into science, just the science of our brain and the science of the way that we operate in this world. And as a faith-based coach and someone that practices biblical principles, combining the two, I was just telling another person that I interviewed, I believe that there is this beautiful marriage that's happening with science and faith, and it's really helping us understand ourselves even more. Would you say that you're seeing that happen as well?
Yeah, completely. For me in particular, like I try to live what I teach. So me, I can't separate psychology and my faith or my spirituality. It's all one. And the more I see clients, the more I can see that connection as well.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing that's happening in our world. So, Patrick, I really want to lean in to this thought of busyness. I don't know. I
Mhm.
mean, I can only speak from a woman's perspective. I feel like as women, we pride ourselves in doing nine things at once, but it's really preventing us from being fully available to any one thing and especially being available to our emotions. Can you help us understand how busyness is actually really harmful?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is to understand is that most of us, and particularly females, define their worth through their productivity.
Mm,
And that's what we've been taught to do. We've been taught to the more you do these things and these really important things, the better you are as a person.
mm,
So what that's going to mean is you're going to feel just to feel worthy, you're going to feel drawn to doing more and more and more and more. And
mhm.
so what you're doing is you're chasing a feeling of worth, but also avoiding the feeling of unworthy, but only because the belief pattern is the problem, not because you are unworthy.
That literally gave me chills. This idea of worthiness. I believe it's rooted in childhood, right?
Mm.
Whether we were seen, whether we were told you're being a good girl or a good boy, and then we develop these patterns. Is that correct, Patrick? Are there other ways that our worthiness can be measured, and why do we substitute running away from why do we feel unworthiness and substitute it with busyness?
Yeah, so I think when we look at our unworthiness, it can come from messages from childhood, particularly, but a lot of times what it can come from is lack of message as well. So it might
Mm,
just be, you're naughty as an example, but no one's saying you're unworthy. Just a child is egocentric, so they must say, "Oh, I must be unworthy when I'm naughty." So a
mm,
lot of times we actually just develop it without actually being told that we're not worthy. We also can develop it from comparison to someone who's praised. So you're praised for being very busy, or praised for being very helpful. And then when we're not praised for not being helpful, we think, oh, maybe I mustn't be worthy. I'm more worthy when I'm helpful.
mm.
So so what we do is we get into a state of chasing those emotions to feel our worth. And it ends up, I call it being a slave to our belief system then. And
Absolutely. And then oftentimes as a wife, a mother, a woman, then resentment,
mm,
rears its ugly head because it's like you're doing all of these things and you're still not getting the accolades that you feel like you deserve when really it's something within that you should be trying to heal and manage. Would you agree? Hey, sis, you got a minute? My name is Coach Tamika, and I am opening up the sanctuary. And if you have been looking for a place to heal, grow, and become everything that God has called you to be, I created the sanctuary just for you. The sanctuary is my private community where every week we come together. Week 1, we do a powerful coaching. Week 2 is live Q&A. Week 3 is prayer and activation. And week 4, I bring in an expert guest that is going to teach us on all the things temple care, identity, growing and starting your business. Right now, we are looking for our first 100 founding members. You will receive your first 3 months absolutely free. And after that, it's just $47 a month. If you are ready for the next season of healing and becoming, join us inside the sanctuary. The link is in the show notes. Would you agree?
I completely agree. Yeah. And resentment in general, I'd say most resentment is about our needs not getting met. And
Mm.
what we're doing is we're actually blaming the other for our needs not getting met, rather than actually what I do feel, rather than resentment, is I actually feel sad. I'm not getting my needs met. And then when we recognize that, we can say, well, it's not their job to meet my needs. It's my job.
Yeah. Okay, Patrick, I don't think I've ever done this, but
Okay.
because you're a psychologist, I want to allow you to pick my brain. I'm going
Sure.
to tell you this dream that I had. I want to say it was around 2020, 2021. And I think a lot of things were happening for everyone around the world during that time because we had to get still. The busyness stopped. So there was a lot of inner work that was happening. So this one particular morning, I got up and I did my morning routine, right? Which is actually, let me take that back. It was earlier than what I normally do. I got this nudge to go and like pray and journal and do the things that I do that helps me heal. And I had this open vision. And in this vision, I was like an 8-year-old little girl. It was me. And it was who I believe to be my God, which it was Jesus on the stage, and he was dancing and he was playing. And we were in this auditorium, and I'm sitting there and I'm being a good little girl, and I'm sitting perfect, and I'm sitting up tall, and I'm doing all the things so that he could pick me. And then all these other students, and I think you've kind of already hit on this, but I would love for you to kind of dissect this dream. All these other students came into the auditorium, and as soon as they came in, Patrick, I shrunk and I began to feel like, I'm not good enough. He's going to choose them, not choose me. And then this beautiful moment happened where he called me up to the stage and he said, in order for you to truly grow and become everything that I desire to be, you to be, I need you to stop pretending, being perfect, and operating under perfectionism. It was the three P's. I created a whole framework around it. But in that moment, as I woke up from this dream or this vision, I felt like there was little Tamika needed to hear that in order for me to be the woman that I am today. Now, I'm going to pass you the ball, and I would love for you to dissect that not only for me, but maybe even for listeners that are dealing with perfections, dealing with pretending, dealing with trying to be perfect. How does any of that, or maybe you're like, girl, you're crazy, that none of that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think if we maybe interpret the dream a little bit, we can kind of see that when there's no one else around, you felt fine within yourself. And so how we've learned to develop our worth is we've learned to do it by comparison.
Mm,
So when other people came, it's like, well, I shrunk and I became smaller because I'm comparing myself now to others.
yeah.
So in our mind, what we're actually doing is we're always comparing to a different standard within.
Mm,
And even if it's not to others, there is a standard in our own mind that we have that we feel we should meet in
mm,
order to be loved or in order to be perfect. More loved really is the thing, or worthy. So, so that standard is usually the problem. So we think we have to have this perfection standard, which doesn't really exist because it's just a conditioned response that of expectations that we feel are important, but aren't necessary. In
mm,
terms of, I guess, Jesus being in the dream, like how I think of it, and what I always tell people is does God view you as unworthy? Does Jesus view you as unworthy? And why is your belief more important than theirs?
ooh.
Why are you giving more power to your conditioning than theirs? Why are you seeing yourself in a different way than they're seeing you? Why don't you try to match them rather than change you to match your own?
That's so good. I love that. That was a look at you being a dream interpreter. I love that. That was so good. So, so good. And it's so true. I believe it was Henry Ford's wife, and I think people give her credit for it, that says comparison is the thief of all joy. And many of us live in these stuck cycles and these cyclical cycles of really just unhappiness, unworthiness because we're comparing ourselves, and we know comparison comes from so many different places. How do we really heal comparison? Is there a way to heal comparison? Are there practical things that folks can start doing so they can see themselves the way Jesus sees them, the way maybe even their children, or really just see themselves for who they truly know that they are?
To see ourselves as our soul sees us is how I look at it, or how our true self sees us. Yeah.
Hmm.
So in my book, Waking Up to Yourself, I've actually got a section on there about comparison, but I'm happy to chat about it. Is that comparison is not something we have to eliminate. What we want to recognize is comparison is a useful tool to kind of identify something I might want.
Mm,
So like it's good to identify a direction, but it doesn't mean to belittle myself for not having it.
mm. Wow,
So
what
it's
a
more,
great
yeah,
reframe.
yeah. So we really want to say, well, the more accepting we can be of, as we are, the more we can see around, and that's what um, uh, uh, comparison is about. It's about seeing opposite to find what we want within.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
so the dance gives us that option.
such a great reframe. I remember hearing that once before, that it's not that we have to eliminate comparison. It's really just information. It's just telling
Mm.
us something that we desire.
Yeah, and also telling us where we can work on accepting ourselves more.
Mm. Great way to look at that. You are doing some amazing work in this world with your clients and the folks that you are serving, and this book. I would love to hear more about your book. I would love to hear more about how the TWT family can get in contact with you. My daughter is going, I have a daughter there's a YouTube family in Australia. I'm not sure where they're at, but since she was a little girl, she's watched them and she just swears that we can jump on a plane and go to Australia. So she's going to be so jealous that I'm talking to.
Yes,
someone
yes,
from her
yes.
favorite place. But tell us more about your book, how we can learn more about the work that you're doing and get in contact with you.
Yeah, so my book's called Waking Up to Yourself, and it's about living your truth. So it's a guide to living your truth.
Mm,
And so a lot of it isn't a religious book per se, but there is a lot of connection to soul. So you just take from it what you will. And
mm,
really what it's about is getting to know how to live from your soul and not just get stuck in our mind and our emotions.
mhm,
And really that's what I look at as our truth. So that like our deep calling. And part of that is really connecting to our self-love in particular and
mm,
knowing how to love ourselves, knowing how to love ourselves unconditionally, not just conditionally like our perfectionist mind wants us to do.
yeah.
And so that's really what I try to teach and bring to the world. And I do that through my YouTube channel, which is at Patrick Marando, same as my Instagram is at Patrick Marando, and also my website is patrickmarando.com. So I do that through there too.
Awesome. We will make sure that we have all those links in the show notes so you all can continue to connect with Patrick, the link to his book, the link to his YouTube and his social media, because I believe there is a great waking up that's happening. And I believe that there's a lot of people in one of my communities. I talked about this path that our mind loves pictures. And when we look at like a trail, if there is no clear path, if there's no direction, we will stay stuck because our brain loves familiar. So I believe what you're doing, Patrick, is you're helping us to start that path, to start a new path and new neural pathways in our brain. And so we need direction, we need teachers, we need people to lead us onto that path. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens with this, is that the more we connect to our truth, the more neural pathways we create that are more aligned with our truth. And in that case, we can say more aligned with how God sees us or how Jesus sees us or how our soul sees us. So the more we follow those parts of our truth, the more clarity we have, the more peace we have, because we don't get lost in the conditioning, which is all about conditional peace or familiarity.
Ah, I love that. All right, Patrick. Well, thank you so much. I do want to ask you one last question before we end
Sure.
today's show. One of my pillars, or one of the things that I use to guide conversation on this podcast, is loving yourself as if you've never been hurt. What would you say to someone that maybe has dealt with trauma, that has dealt with hard things in life, and they're having a hard time really seeing themselves, really loving themselves, really adapting the concept of self-love? What would you say to them are a couple of things that they could start doing to really start their journey of self-love?
Yeah, well, one thing is I've got a whole chapter on my book about self-love, so definitely have a read of that. But but the first thing would be if you're having real trouble taking on board self-love, I think it's important to define it. So
Mm,
self-love doesn't mean having to like have a romantic love of yourself. Self-love could be how you start treating yourself. So you might think of it more like self-valuing for now.
mm,
That might not feel so triggering. And then what you can do is you can decide it as a direction and a destination rather than somewhere you need to be right now. So you might say, I'd like to build my self-forgiveness. I'd like to build my self-compassion. I'd like to build my self-acceptance or my self-care. So that they would even just those things are ways of loving yourself. And the more you build that, the more you can move in the direction of having it. And you can often say, like, how would I treat someone else in this situation? And how can I start saying those things to myself? Can I
mm.
start doing the things I'm giving advice for?
That's really good. And a lot of my sessions, I call this future casting. So sometimes we can't see it now, but if we can just start imagining, how do I want it to look? How do I want it to be? Because eventually, when we give our brain those pictures, our brain does everything in its willpower to get to those pictures that we're giving it. Patrick, thank you so much for being on the episode. We will for sure have all your information in the show notes. And TWT family, continue to live a life to inspire and not impress. Continue to lift others as you climb. Continue to open up and allow God to fully restore you and live love as if you've never been hurt. Until next week, bye bye.